Dong Xingyi's confident smile broadened as he reached out towards Dong Qingxue. "What's your requirement?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of challenge. He was ready to fulfill any request she had, especially as she was on the brink of ascending to master. He even offered to assist her in reaching the level of grandmaster, his tone dripping with certainty. Dong Qingxue, her arms crossed, remained composed, shaking her head slowly. "This isn't about martial arts," she replied, her voice calm but firm. She then asked, her gaze fixed on him, "Do you plan to defeat the generals of the East according to their ranking?" Dong Shengyi, still brimming with confidence, touched his neck and smiled. "Yes," he said, almost dismissively. To him, they were not worthy rivals, but he would treat it as a warm-up exercise. At his answer, Dong Qingxue's cheeks flushed a deep red. She looked away, her emotions betraying her stoic demeanor, and with a soft, almost trembling voice, she asked, "Could you skip Star General number 4? Dong Xingyi's expression turned serious as he pondered her request. For a moment, he was unsure who this fourth-rank general was. Dong Qingxue stood quietly behind him, her heart pounding in her chest. Then, as if struck by a sudden realization, Dong Xingyi's smile returned, more excited than before. "General number 4. Lu Sheng from the 9th War Zone," he murmured, recalling the name. In a flash, he was beside Dong Qingxue, his hand moving so quickly she barely registered it until he was holding something. A necklace, the one Lu Sheng had given her. Dong Qingxue's eyes widened in shock, her heart racing with a mix of confusion and anger. "Give it back," she demanded, her voice sharp, as she reached out towards him. Dong Shengyi studied the necklace, a gleam of interest in his eyes. "So this is from Lu Sheng," he mused aloud, noting the pure martial will imbued in the simple trinket. Amused, he tossed it back to her with a laugh, teasing her about her unchanged temper since childhood. Catching the necklace, Dong Qingxue turned away from him, clutching it tightly in her hands, her mind racing. She knew her brother well enough to understand the weight of his words, but she remained silent, her thoughts a whirlwind. Dong Shengyi, sensing her turmoil, softened his tone slightly. "Since you've asked, I won't fight Lu Sheng in this competition," he conceded, though his words carried an underlying challenge. He tightened his fist, the blue energy surrounding him flaring up as he continued. "But after I've defeated the 5 main military zones, that little man you've taken a liking to better be able to withstand at least one attack from me. Only then will I recognize him. And your relationship?" Dong Xingyi's gaze hardened as he looked at Dong Qingxue. "If Lu Sheng can't meet my challenge, no matter how much you care for him, I won't allow your relationship," he declared, his voice unwavering. A single drop of sweat slid down Dong Qingxue's cheek as she stood there, stunned by his ultimatum. Her mind raced, but no words came. Dong Shengyi, sensing her inner turmoil, stepped closer. His fists clenched tightly, and a suffocating energy enveloped him, making the atmosphere almost unbearable. "My test isn't difficult," he continued, his tone low and serious. "But Dong potions, that's a different story. Do you remember the boy from the Qin family who lived next door when we were kids? He tried to win your favor, and Dong potion nearly killed him on the spot." The mention of that memory made Dong Qingxue's expression change drastically. Fear and surprise flickered in her eyes as she began to sweat more heavily. Dong Shengyi placed a firm hand on her shoulder, his gaze softening just a little. "Think it over carefully," he advised. "Not all of your brothers are as understanding and elegant as I am." Before Dong Qingxue could respond, Lin Wanwan approached, gently taking Dong Qingxue's hand in both of hers. She smiled warmly, her eyes closed, and reassured her, "Don't worry, Qingxue. When the time comes, I'll make sure big brother Dong Xingyi keeps his word. I won't let Lu Sheng get hurt." Her tone was kind, but the underlying determination was clear. Dong Qingxue looked at Lin Wanwan, her mind swirling with confusion and worry, but she remained silent. Dong Shengyi, who had been watching the exchange, turned his head slightly towards Lin Wanwan. "If you ever find yourself a boyfriend, he'll have it worse," he said with a teasing grin. "Your mother is a martial saint, and you've got a pack of brothers who are all champions in their own right." Lin Wanwan, still holding Dong Qingxue's hand, turned her head sharply to look at him, surprise flashing in her eyes. But she quickly regained her composure. With a confident smile, she raised 2 fingers and replied, "My mom listens to me, and all my siblings listen to her, so I have nothing to worry about." A moment later, the 3 of them began walking together. Dong Shengyi cracked his fingers, his smile returning as he looked ahead. "In 3 days, I'll sweep away all the experts from the Eastern Star list," he announced. his voice full of anticipation. Lin Wanwan, her eyes gleaming with excitement, fell in step behind him. Dong Qingxue, arms crossed and a serious expression on her face, walked beside them. As they moved forward, Dong Xingyi's thoughts shifted to the cave they were about to enter. Prepare well, he instructed, his tone firm. After 3 days, we'll be entering the cave. And now, I've got my sights set on Lu Sheng. As night fell in the dream space, the city grew darker, and the once lifeless zombies began to roam the streets aimlessly. Lu Sheng, with a determined expression, made his way to the system room, his mind focused on the task at hand. The system windows floated before him, casting a faint glow in the dimly lit room. He had never paid much attention to the evaluations of those around Dong Qingxue, but now, curiosity piqued, he began navigating through the system interface, bringing up the information about Dong Qingxue and her brothers. The system windows flickered as they revealed the evaluations. 5 stars for Dong Xingyi, 6 stars for Dong Potion. Lu Sheng's brow furrowed as he read the details. Dong Xingyi was impressive, but it was Dong Potion who caught his attention. A level 9, martial saint, having reached that level after over a century of training, was indeed remarkable. Many martial artists were stuck at the level 8 Grandmaster stage for 100 years or more, but Dong Potion had broken through, earning him the title of an extraordinary talent. Lu Sheng closed his eyes and sighed, dismissing the information with a casual thought. Just a martial saint, he mused. In the vast history of martial arts, there had been countless martial saints. Even the 3 current martial saints in the Dragon Realm weren't ranked among the top in 3,000 years of martial history, let alone someone as insignificant as Dong Potion. Opening his eyes, Lu Sheng's thoughts drifted to Dong Qingxue. Her image appeared before him, floating in the sky. Her gaze met his, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. He reached out, extending his hand toward her, and a soft smile played on his lips as he acknowledged the truth he'd been avoiding. To say he didn't like her would be a lie. When he was younger, he had admired her deeply. Dong Qingxue's image mirrored his gesture, her hand reaching out to meet his. Lu Sheng's mind wandered to a saying he'd heard once. More than 90% of men, in their youth, had secretly fallen in love with one of their masters. Whether man or woman, the combination of hormones and admiration planted seeds in their hearts, seeds that often withered before they could grow. As their hands met, Dong Qingxue's form began to fade, disappearing like a wisp of smoke. A wave of sadness washed over Lu Sheng, and he realized that these subtle emotions, over time, had dissipated like smoke in the wind. His feelings for Dong Qingxue had been rekindled when he saw the spouse box in the system, but now, he wondered if this was destiny or just a fleeting thought. He stared at his hand, the one that had just reached out to her, and with a determined smile, he decided it was time to train a bit before sleep. He'd earned some money for milk and had been preparing for the inevitable confrontation with Dong Xingyi. When the time came, he'd be ready, using whatever techniques necessary to emerge victorious. Lu Sheng put his hand under his chin, closing his eyes with confidence. He was certain that his situation would remain undiscovered. As for Dong Xingyi, the future brother-in-law he'd likely encounter frequently, Lu Sheng knew he had to make a good impression. 3 days passed, and the sun shone brightly on a seemingly ordinary day as Lu Sheng sat in his mansion. He lounged in a chair, legs crossed, holding his phone in one hand. His mind wandered to Zhang Dandan and Yang, and with a calm expression, he resolved not to bother those who weren't listed in the spouse box. He scrolled through his contact list and stopped at He Ling Su's name. It had been a long time since they last communicated. On a whim, he decided to send her a message, initiating a conversation. Minutes later, his phone buzzed with her response, but it wasn't just a simple reply. She had been waiting for an opportunity to reach out to him, and now bombarded him with a flood of messages. Lu Sheng, who had been holding the phone lazily, closed his eyes, a wave of regret washing over him. Reaching out to her had been a mistake. Her messages, filled with updates and chatter, quickly overwhelmed him. A while later, she sent him a document, a thesis report, of all things. Lu Sheng stared at it, wondering if someone like her could ever become his wife. The thought of her being more focused on work than on their relationship made him sigh deeply. It was clear to him that this wasn't going to work. Lu Sheng leaned back in his chair, fingers tapping idly on the sleek surface of his phone as he sent a message to He Ling Su. The weather's getting colder. Take care of yourself and don't overwork. Health comes first. On the other side, He Ling Su sat with her mobile in hand, eyes widening as she read the message. Her cheeks flushed with a sudden warmth. Lu Sheng, the vampire, caring about my health? She shook her head in disbelief, a smile tugging at her lips. Lu Sheng placed his phone down, picking up a report from the stack on his desk. As he began to read, his phone buzzed again. Curious, he glanced at the screen and saw a new message from He Ling Su. Who are you, and how dare you use Lu Sheng's phone? If you found it, return it immediately. A bead of sweat formed on his brow. She thinks someone else is using my phone? He blinked in confusion, his mind racing. Did I really come off that out of character? His thoughts were interrupted as he turned his attention back to the situation with Dong Shengyi. 3 days have passed. Why hasn't he come yet? Lu Sheng mused, swiping through the latest news. His eyes narrowed as he read the headlines. Dong Shengyi defeats 9th Battle Zone's top expert Ibuk. All challengers defeated in a single move. Lu Sheng frowned. Dong Shengyi took on everyone, yet he's avoided me? He pondered the implications. Could it be that he's giving me a break? His mind drifted to Dong Qingxue, imagining her intervening on his behalf. A small smile played on his lips. So, this is what it's like to rely on your wife. He reached for a glass, savoring the cool liquid as he contemplated his next move. If Dong Shengyi isn't going to bother me, then I won't provoke him. But I need to make my mark too. I have to show that I'm worthy of standing by Dong Qingxue. Setting the glass down, he stood up, his expression resolute. Time to dive back into training. The competition is just around the corner, and I'll need every advantage I can get. After all, weapons and marriages both cost money, and I'll need plenty to support a wife and family. He turned toward Li Dai, who stood quietly in the corner. Prepare my things. I'm leaving the mansion, he ordered, his voice steady. Li Dai bowed her head in acknowledgement, hands resting on her abdomen. Understood. Meanwhile, in the double S-level dungeon, Lin Wanwan landed softly, one knee and hand touching the cold ground. She stood, wrapping her arms around herself as she shivered slightly. It's colder than I expected down here, she thought, her breath visible in the frigid air. Ahead, Dong Qingxue stood with her arms crossed, her eyes focused on the path ahead. Beside her, Dong Shengyi rested his hands on his waist, a grin spreading across his face as he spotted Lin Wanwan. If you spent more time on martial arts, you wouldn't feel the cold. With genes like yours, it's a waste not to push yourself harder. Lin Wanwan grasped the necklace tightly in one hand, her other hand hovering just above it as a soft, radiant glow began to emanate from the pendant. Her eyes sparkled with a mischievous glint as she looked up at Dong Shengyi. Not everyone wants to walk the martial path, she remarked, her tone light but resolute. As she spoke, a shimmering energy enveloped her body, pulsing gently with warmth. With a confident smile, she placed both hands on her waist, closed her eyes, and laughed softly. There, that's better. No more cold for me. Lin Wanwan then retrieved an amulet from her belongings, turning to Dong Qingxue with a knowing smile. Here, she said, handing it to her. As Dong Qingxue activated the amulet, a powerful aura flared to life around her, the air humming with its intensity. She stared at the amulet, silent and contemplative, feeling the strength it imbued within her. Dong Shengyi, noticing the exchange, turned towards them with an amused grin. This amulet, it's not unlike what Lu Sheng gave you, Qingxue, but the value of this one is incomparable. The will of a martial saint contained within it is beyond measure. Both women turned to him, their expressions shifting from surprise to curiosity. Dong Qingxue's gaze dropped to the ground as she absorbed his words, her mind racing. It's much better than I thought. Dong Shengyi cracked his knuckles, a faint green energy swirling around his body like a serpent ready to strike. His smile widened, a mixture of confidence and anticipation. There's not much more to say. It's time to begin. We're here to explore the cracks, nothing more. You two won't need to lift a finger. I'll handle all the beasts myself.